Hello and welcome to Run It Back on the Raptors Republic Network. My name is Zophie Sheikh, and if we weren't going to get copyright claimed, I would have played the song "The Boys Are Back in Town" because I am joined by Kyle Ramnarine and Cody Wiles. Holy crap, boys, we finally done it. The three of us reunited, and it feels so good. I am just making all the song puns. But Kyle, how are you doing, my brother?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. It's been, a few interesting weeks of basketball for the Raptors too. It's kind of just been chugging along here to see what's been going on.
All right, I like it short and sweet. Excited to talk. Cody, how have you been, my guy?
Busy, busy. I'm in the middle of a move, so
Ooh.
I'm at a slightly higher angle than normal because I have a bunch of stuff behind me. But right after this, it's back to packing boxes. But I'm happy to take a break and talk some Toronto Raptors.
Hell yeah. We are happy to have you here. Again, I am ecstatic to have the three of us back together talking hoops and talking Raptors basketball specifically, as we do here at Run It Back. And boys, the season is almost over, but there is still plenty of hoops to discuss because after another 4 games for the Raptors, it was a pretty interesting week of basketball because for one of the few times this year, they were perfect. They went 4-0 this week. They picked up impressive wins over the Wizards, Nets, Hornets, and Sixers. Specifically, the game against Brooklyn, by the way, was the Raptors' biggest margin of victory this year. Toronto ended the week by being 28-47 for the season, still 11th in the East and 7th in the reverse standings. And for our draft lottery watchers, the Raptors' 4-game win streak has them now 3 games behind Brooklyn and 4 behind Philly for the 6th and 5th best odds, which means they're just 3.5 games ahead of the free falling Spurs, who have lost 4 in a row, who also have a pretty tough schedule ahead for those 8th odds. So that'll be interesting to watch. Can they kind of keep that distance from falling into 8th? Can they catch up to 6th or 5th? We'll talk about that in our weekly takeaways where we break down all the action. We'll also chat a bit of Raptors coaching news that broke recently, give our closing thoughts on the Raptors 905 season, and take a look at next week's schedule. But before we get into it, boys, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment on the video letting us know what you thought of the last week of Raptors basketball, and make sure you're not missing any of the great content here at Raptors Republic. But with that being said, let's run it back. And guys, I think the easiest place to start, so I can finally shut up and hear from you guys, is it was a 4-0 week for the Raptors. They seem, for the most part, unless something drastically changes, to be locked into the 7th best odds after a successful week of basketball, I guess you could say. So I'll start with you, Cody. What are your thoughts on the Raptors situation as things stand right now?
It's just, what do you want them to do? Like they're playing some of the worst teams in the league, and the defense has been incredible. Just look. So they've won 10 of their last 15 games, and those wins have come 2 against Orlando, 2 against Utah, 2 against Washington, 2 against Philly, Brooklyn, and Charlotte. None of them are over 500. I would say they're pretty much locked into the 7th best spot. We'll see what happens with San Antonio. They play them in game 82, so that could be interesting. But honestly, it's been the defense. It's been the defense, which has been the biggest problem, I'd say, in Darko's tenure, and we'll get to Darko a little bit later. But I mean, they've had the league's best defensive rating through March. Though I will say 12 of the 15 games they've played in March have come against bottom 10 offenses, as the teams I mentioned. So I think that that might be a bit misleading, but I mean, they're dominating the bad teams, so that says something.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the defense conversation and how much of a stepping stone it really is for them going to next season, Cody. I agree with you. It has been awesome. I think since like mid-January, since they started kind of like
It's like the
racking up some
second
of these
best.
wins.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
36
it's
game
really,
stretch since
yeah,
mid-January.
it's really high up there. But like you said, it's getting skewed a little bit by the competition. Like again, Brooklyn, they put up 86 points. That changes those numbers quite a bit. The Hornets failed to score 100. Even the wins against the Wizards and 76ers, they barely got over 100 points, right? But again, some of that is to the Raptors' credit. They did a good job defensively, but how much is that? How much those teams are competing and how much those teams are actually good offensively, like you said, bottom 10 offenses. But Kyle, from your perspective, I guess you're the one who's been very passionate, I'll say, about the Raptors needing to add a top talent in the draft, are kind of making the most of their situation. And they seem like they're pretty much locked into the 7th odds here, which, if you aren't aware, that's about a 32% chance of landing a top 4 pick and about a 7.5% chance of landing the number 1 overall pick, presumably to draft a Cooper Flag. So, Kyle, what are your thoughts about where the Raptors are right now?
Well, I went to with those 2 weeks we were gone. I went through a 2-week grieving process of that we're not getting a top three pick. So I
You
kind of
don't know
come
that
to
for sure. You don't
Yeah,
know
who
that for sure.
knows? Who knows?
I will say the
I-
last time the Raptors had the seventh best odds pre-lottery, I think we've all heard this already.
Mhm.
It was in 2021, and they jumped up and drafted Scotty Barnes. So who knows?
I'm just going into this like with my expectations tempered. So if we do, like, I can be the happiest person on the planet. But if we do somehow land, I'm just hoping we land, at least with the top 7 around there. But again, I can't fault these guys for winning games. Like, you can't just go out and tell. And we've said this before. We can't go out and tell these guys go out and lose this game. But the one positive I see is we're better than the worst teams in the NBA, at least.
Exactly.
And I think we always knew that, though. We always knew this core team, like, if we're not actively rebuilding, we are better than the bottom feeders in this league. We have good defense, we have good players, and I think just going forward, this is kind of setting my expectations. No matter what pick we get, I think the next season and the season after, the Raptors gotta not kick it up into contending, but we need to start winning games, actively developing these players, and getting back into contending form. I think the rebuild kind of stops after this, like, season with the draft and just goes into full on developing our younger players, getting them the G League, getting those reps. And I think this end of season is kind of showing what the next kind of 2 seasons are going to look like, I should say.
Yeah, and I will say that, I mean, they're dominating these bad teams while resting some of their own guys, right? And then still having injuries on the side as well. So, yeah, like you said, it's going to be interesting to see what these next 2 years look like, because Darko's going to be around for the next 2, presumably, unless he gets canned, which I don't see coming. I don't know if either you guys would. We can get into that, but yeah, they are. It's we've been saying it all year. They're too good to tank, and that's good. That's good. People think that's a bad thing. No, it's a good thing. They have talent on the roster. That's good. They acquired Brandon Ingram. People didn't like it. They got more talent for a very cheap price. That's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah, look, I'll come out and say it. I'm feeling. I don't. You guys can tell me if you agree or disagree. I'm feeling pretty optimistic for next season, to be quite honest with you.
I am
Like,
as well. The East is right there for the
yeah,
taking.
exactly. And like the Raptors have made it clear their intention is to be competitive next year. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I do not think they're thinking that that means being a contender, not a top 3 or 4 team in the East. I think it just means being relevant, being in that playoff picture, and kind of getting these guys that experience and being able to build that upon that experience, raise value, and pivot if they need to beyond that. And I think based on what we're seeing, like you guys have mentioned, they're just much better than the other like bottom feeders in the Eastern Conference. It just point blank, flat out, they are not bad like those other teams. And for my preseason prediction of the Raptors winning 30 wins, that is still alive, and I'm very happy about that. I seemed like people called me dumb for saying that, but look, it's there. They're at 27, and they have like what 7 games to go. It could happen. But like on a more serious note, like yeah, they look better than those really like bottom feeding teams. They seem to have a better trajectory based on their talent. If they add another like potentially top 5 to 10 pick and see how they fit into that system as well, with guys like Scotty developing, RJ, IQ talked about it. Cody, you mentioned Brandon Ingram finally getting into the fold. That guy hasn't played a game yet for the Raptors, and we already keep talking about all the problems he can solve for this team when it comes to isolation scoring, pull-up efficiency, stuff like that. He'll solve so many problems for them. So I'm pretty optimistic of what this team can do next season. And I don't have to come out and say I think they're going to outright make the playoffs or a second round, but like I think they'll be a pretty competitive team based on what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Sorry to cut you off, Cody. I don't know if you want to add anything, but yeah, no, agree with you guys both. Like, I've always been keen on this team, and I can kind of just see where they're going with the young guys and with our drafting process. It's a slow but surely type of thing. And I think a lot of fans were kind of just like, they want to be in this win now mode. We won the championship in 2019. We kind of want to get back to our winning ways, but it's a slow burn. And I'm really excited for the future. I'm really excited for whoever we end up drafting, guys like Jacoby Walter, Jamal Shed. We have so much talent on the G League, so much talent on this team. And like Cody was saying, it's a good thing that we added talent. It's so funny that we kind of explicitly have to say that. Like, it's a good thing that we added talent to the team. But again, that is a good team. It gives us more options going into the next season and the season after that to kind of figure out, what lineups work good together, what doesn't, what players have to take a step up. And I think for me too, kind of heading into next season or heading into the season after the following seasons, I think Scotty at least has to take that jump from an all-star to all NBA level for us to really start contending, like along, not immediately, but along down the line. I feel like someone has to take that leap into really kind of, I don't know, what do you guys feel about that? Like all NBA, not top 3 MVP, but kind of top 10 player in the league.
I mean, based on I think his career trajectory, it's like a good
Yeah.
year, a bad year, a good year, a stagnant year, and then so we could be due for that. We'll see, but I think just to just kind of end this. I mean, Zolfi, I remember you did some work on this last season. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe the seventh best lotto odds has jumped up more times than the 6 and 5, if I believe correctly.
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of me. I know Z, you did some work on it last year,
Yeah,
but
I'll let you finish your thought, but just quickly, I looked it up again recently, and so I don't have memorized or anything, but 2019 the odds changed when they flattened out a little
yeah,
bit, and since then, I believe basically the first 4 years since the seventh spot jumped up, there was like 2 years where they stayed where they were, and then like a year where I could be wrong. Maybe it was 1 year they stayed at the seventh, and then 2 years where they dropped down. But like if we're looking from 2019 till now, the seventh a lot of odds have jumped up more than they've not. Obviously, probability doesn't take history into account, but if we're praying to the basketball gods, that's what we're praying for.
yeah, that's the silver lining that I guess fans can look at. But yeah, I just wanted to say the Laudables are going to fall where they are, and I think the front office is perfectly fine with them winning some games here at the end because it's going to be what it's going to be. You hope you jump up. I mean, hey, they could have ended up with the best that they're going to do is fifth worst,
Mm.
and then you could still drop to whatever seventh
Yeah.
anyways. So it's going to be what it's going to be. And to be honest, if you're at 7 and you drop down to 8 or 9, there's not, to me, at least personally with the prospects, there's not that much difference of a tier. So I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, like just to like put a bow on the whole like draft conversation and adding a talented rookie. Obviously, you want to end up with like a top three pick, a Cooper Flag or what have you. But like you said, Cody, and you've been watching a lot of college ball, like this draft pool isn't exactly what it was labeled as coming in. It's not the most loaded. I mean, they're still very, very talented players, but like after like maybe the top three or even top two guys, like it's a lot closer than people kind of initially expected when it comes to some of these talents. So it's really going to come down to your scouting team, your development staff, and can they get the most out of these players? Can they find what they're looking for? And I'm sure we'll talk about it when we talk about the 905, but this Raptors front office is really kind of committed to that idea. And we saw it with this 2024 draft class. They took picks that maybe weren't as conventional or maybe some people didn't see coming. And so far, for the most part, they've looked really good. It's a pretty positive draft class. Even if you take the undrafted guys like a Jamison Battle or like, hey, Jamal Shed, I'm fairly convinced he's one of the 3 steals of this year's draft. Like Jamal Shed's been awesome for the Raptors. So like if you can kind of replicate some of that and just trust in this team scouting and development, which they're again is a priority for them, I think they're in a good spot no matter what. And I'm not ready to say if they fall down or even stay at 7th that it's a bit of a death nail for them. I think they're still in a really good spot moving into next year.
Yeah, for me personally, from 5 to 12 is all the same tier of prospects. So take that with what you will. They're going to fall within most likely that range anyways. So I think they'll be all right. And like you said, they draft so well. Like
Yeah.
who cares where they land? They're going to find the talent.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I think that's
too. Like, yeah, in the last few years, they've drafted really well. Like you can't really say they've had a bad pick. They've had steals, they've had solid picks, they've had everything in those. So I trust them. I trust them with the scouting reports. I trust our developmental team. They're just curious to see who they're gonna end up drafting.
Can't wait.
Yeah,
Lottery's
we
May
will
12th. Mark the
yeah,
calendars.
Got the
That's when.
countdown going, man.
Yep. Yep.
circle it, pray to the gods, say everything you can, whether it's making a sacrifice to the lords or whatever. I don't care. I mean, if we get the number 1 pick, I don't know what I do, Adam Silver, but I may kiss the man. But until that happens, we just have to wait and see. But something we do know at this point, and we have a little graphic here we can put up for you in a second. But Darko Rajakovic, the Raptors head coach, news was broken yesterday by Sportsnet's Michael Grange that the Raptors had already, and pretty quietly, I may add, picked up Darko's option for the 2026-27 season. Now, that means the first-time head coach will be staying with the Raptors for at least 2 more years, like Cody said, unless for some reason they decide to just can him out of nowhere, which is pretty unexpected. And for those who don't know, the Raptors to this point have a 53-104 record under Darko Rajakovic through his 2 seasons. Obviously, the second year isn't all the way done just yet, but they are about to miss the playoffs for a second consecutive year under Darko Rajakovic. You can count the play-in if you want in that. But it appears that, according to many people around the league, at least, despite the record, and not just to the Raptors, that people are pretty optimistic about Darko's future here with the Raptors. As Grange noted in his piece, a couple sources had some quotes. One of them mentioned how the players respect Darko. He works well with the front office, and he's building something. He has a vision and a program. Another anonymous source through Michael Grange said that he's been able to get players, young guys, veterans alike, to buy in on what the Raptors are trying to do, and that's a pretty remarkable thing. And I think I personally do agree with that, but I'm curious to hear from you guys this idea of Darko sticking around, at least for the length of his contract. So, Cody, kind of like, where do you stand on not them just picking up the option, but just Darko's time here and the outlook moving forward?
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I agree. Like he has the locker room. The players love him. Supposedly, they watch them compete. If you go watch like a Wizards Jazz, those games with their young guys, they aren't competing like the way the Raptors are. I believe Rick
The
Carlisle.
Sixers had an 8-second violation when no one was playing defense. Those guys do not give a shit right now. Like that, just straight up
It's
point
over
blank.
for them.
I believe Rick Carlisle, it might have been a month ago now, said there's like 5 teams in the NBA who play hard, and the Raptors are one of them. That means something, especially when they want to be bad to some degree. And I think the earlier you pick up the option, the more security Darko has, right? The more he can feel confident that, hey, I'm here. And
That's a good point.
he hasn't had a good team for 2 years. So they understand that they're going to want to take a jump next year. I think that's clear as day for everybody. So let's see what he can do with the players now. He has been brought in to develop. Was the biggest thing with him, and he's been doing that. He's been getting that out of literally everybody. Like no one has really regressed or stagnated. Like, yeah, I guess Scotty to some degree, but I think they were just like trying and experimenting a lot with him this year, and that's development in its own right. So I think they're ready for the jump, and let's see what he can do with a full cast of characters.
No, exactly. Oh, wait, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kyle. I'll jump in at the end.
No, I was gonna say, like, this is definitely a no-brainer, and I agree with both of you guys. Like, this is something they had to do, and if you were only listening to Twitter, they would probably would have canned him a while ago. But this again, you got to believe in Darko. You know, these are the years going forward that we can really kind of evaluate him, because he has this full team of talent. He has a good bench. He has developing players, and I think when you finally revisit the convo of should we keep him or should we not, is when this contract ends. I think the next 2 or so years is kind of evaluating Darko. What can he do with a full team, and what can he do with a full healthy team? Can he help us at least make the playoffs in some sort of sense? Can we contend? You know, what can he do? And then again, you can revisit the conversations if we need to move on or if we need to get another coach. But I think they did exactly what they needed to do. This is sort of again a trial and error phase with Darko himself, but the players respect him. He works well with the front office. He's clearly instilled the culture in the team, a winning culture, sort of a heat culture, I should say, but of getting the job done, playing hard. And when you have a team, again, them picking up his option just shows him that the team believes in him, and instilling that confidence in him is overall just good vibes for the team. And going forward, it should be great to see.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to like mimic heat culture. It's not doing so great these days.
No, I was gonna say.
I mean, in fairness, right now they're doing better. They've won 4 in a row, but for the most part, the post Jimmy era hasn't been all that great for the Miami Heat. But look, jokes aside, I kind of agree with you guys that at least for the Darko deserves at least the length of this contract. I don't think any of us is ready to say that Darko is the solution. He's the long-term fit, but I think he's proven enough through his relationships with the players, through the improvements that you talked about, Cody, that he deserves to at least see this thing through to when they're ready to be competitive, which again, by all conversations from the front office, is at least hopefully next season, to kind of see what he can do when there is some sort of expectations on this team moving forward, to see if he can handle those. Like I think Michael Grange mentioned in his piece, Darko Rajakovic hasn't had to call a timeout in a playoff game yet as a head coach. Like, let's see how that goes. Let's get him that experience to see if he's built for it or not. I've said this before, and I continue to say this. New coaches, younger coaches deserve a bit of grace. Let them grow through the growing pains. If you fired every new coach the second there was any sort of like obstacle, they're never going to be able to learn and get better. Then what's the point of being in this industry and kind of working through those things? I said it about Joe Mazzulla earlier, and we've seen the type of coach he is now with his awesome Boston Celtics teams. Mark Daigneault is like one of the most perfect examples of just like really bad early years, but obviously that team wasn't trying to be competitive yet. And when they're ready for it, he seems like a very, very good coach. He'll probably win coach of the year at this point. I would assume this year, maybe. He's already won it. So like, I think it's one of those things where like, give this guy some grace to understand it. And the biggest thing is he has the players bought in. Like point blank, his voice is heard in this locker room. It matters. That piece that we're talking about from Michael Grange, literally the quote in there is Scotty Barnes saying, Darko is the GOAT, man. That's all he says. Darko's the GOAT. And as long as Scotty and these other guys are buying in, I think that's the most important thing. If they're believing in the vision, and it's one thing to say for the young guys who know like their prime is ahead of them, they're going to work to get this next contract to build this relationship. But it's another thing when you have older players like Jakob Poeltl coming into the year, how he was bought in, saying how It's development over wins. We know what the priority is. During the season, he said, I understand what the goals are. I understand the vision. I'm here. I support it. Like, this is a guy who's very much in the prime of his career. He's extension eligible. He could be looking for a new deal. To be on a losing team and to be okay with that, to be supporting it, and to be, quite honestly, balling like he is, having a career year under Darko Rajakovic, I think says a lot about the relationship they have and the trust they have in Darko as a head coach. So as long as those things stay, and as long as he has that support from the players through this vision, I think the front office will then support him. And like you guys mentioned, they were able to give him that trust where he doesn't have to worry about next season. Are they going to pick up that option? Am I going to another year? He can coach freely, which is what you want from a young head coach. So I think I'm echoing a lot of what you guys are saying, but for the most part, I think we agree here. The outlook is positive and optimistic, regardless of like what Kyle said. There's some people on Twitter being very loud about Darko maybe not being that guy.
Yeah, well, that was well put, and I know it was more so in his first year. I feel like he caught a lot of flack, Darko, and I feel like this year it's been a bit more tame. That's just my read. Yeah, 2 years now to see what you can do, right? Unless things go catastrophically, I don't see why they would fire him. Maybe after the 2 years, if the Raptors, I don't know. At this point, I don't even know what it would take for him to not be brought back after that. Like, I guess like not getting out of the first round. Like,
I would assume like if you were a mid on the margins playing team, like if you're like 11th hovering to try to get the 10th or whatever, like if you're stuck in that the next 2 years and you're not progressing, especially with the way the salary are working on this team, the way the player, like again, you added Brandon Ingram, if you're not able to jump at least into the high play into playoff conversation, I think then it's like, well, do we need to pivot to get a voice to get to winning level? Again, the Rockets, they brought in Ime Udoka after the Steven Silas stuff. Like when they were ready to be competitive, they switched voices, right? Like, is it that? We don't know yet.
Yeah, well, yeah. Silas also lost the room. So as like you said, the most important thing is, as long as Darko has the room, I think that's he'll be here. But yeah, I at this point, this is a completely side note. You mentioned Brandon Ingram. At this point, I would play Brandon Ingram. That's that
You would or you wouldn't?
I would
activate him.
I would.
I don't see what
I would get him going. Like, even if you fall to the 8th best odds, which I mean, it could happen, I guess. But
yeah,
I would just get him on the floor. Like, let's get him some shots. Let's just see what he looks like. But I think he just might be done for the year. But what a nasty ankle sprain.
The worst of all time. No, I don't know why I sounded like Donald Trump for a second there, but it's one of the worst ankle sprains of all time, apparently. I'm with you, Cody, though. Like, at this point, what do you have to lose? And honestly, give fans a reason to watch and care.
That's
like,
true.
we're still talking. I know we're not talking into a void at this point. It's the days aren't that dark. There's still people listening and watching to the Raptors, but we'd be lying if we said fan interest hasn't dwindled down quite a bit during this stretch. Because not only are they not winning, because of the way the rotations are and the guys are resting and not playing, lineups are a lot more unfamiliar to the general fan. So then getting a guy that's been hyped up, that you brought in, that you also, by the way, extended to be here long term, let the fans see him. If he's healthy, get him out there for a game or two. Like I said, like they control their fate for the most part when it comes to this lottery situation. Go out there and see what the guy looks like, or at least get him some reps before the season's over.
No, definitely. Yeah, I think they should like activate BI, man. Like, what's the worst that can happen? The ankle sprain gets even worse, but it's not. I agree. I agree with Cody. And there's something that I want to revisit that he said. Like, why exactly wouldn't you kind of extend Darko after this whole contract thing? I feel like it's what are our expectations for the next 2 years? You know, do we want to get into the playoffs? What do we really want to do? Is it development? Like, and then even after those 2 years, say we're just focusing on development, do we pick him back up again because we want to get into the playoffs? I feel like it just comes down to, what does the team really want to do these next 2 years? What do we want to evaluate him on? Do we get into the playoffs, or are we just focusing on developing this core, or is it sort of a mix of both?
To me,
I'll answer the question.
What do you think, Kyle?
I mean, for me, I think you just focus on developing right now. I feel like playoffs will come naturally, but for the next few years, I feel like we just got to work on, what are the best lineups? What is our offense looking like? What is our defense looking like?
In the next 2 years, if the Raptors don't make the play-in or the playoffs, but the players are statistically getting better, say Scotty makes another All-Star or an All-NBA, like you'd be okay with that? Like you think Darko's done his job?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't be mad. Like, I wouldn't be heated. Like, if we don't make the playoffs, because I'm really tempering my expectations, just going with, I really want to build up this team and focus on getting these guys gelling together. If we don't make at least the plans, maybe, but I'm not going to be heated about it. I'm not going to say fire him over that, because I really just want to again just slowly develop our core and whoever we draft. It's gonna be a big change too when we draft a potential top 5 pick into this lineup filled with talent. So it's gonna be a bit of. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say like we're not going to make playoffs at all, but I'm not going to be too heated. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Cody, what do you think?
Maybe I'm more optimistic. I think more likely in the 4th year of this contract, so 2026, 2027, I think they should hopefully win a series. That's the hope. In the next 2 years, win a playoff series. And most partly because the Raptors are young and getting better, and they can switch around things and they can do a lot right now with how they're going to team build, but also because the East is going to be wide open. Like even next year, like realistically, if the Raptors were fully healthy, like they're only 5 games back of the Bulls and the Heat. Right now with everything that has happened with them, so that would easily put them in the play-in. They beat the Magic twice already. The Hawks are always going to be in the play-in, so I feel like you could jump. I feel like you could jump right into the top 6 next year. To me, and then who knows with teams like Detroit and Indiana, obviously Cleveland, Boston, New York, Milwaukee, they're probably going to be around. And
a little bit about Milwaukee, they're an old team. You don't know what Giannis' situation is like.
Exactly. Actually, to be fair, Giannis. I think Giannis is one of the bigger dominoes to drop here. I think he's
coming to Toronto.
Maybe not Toronto, but
I wish so bad.
That was the hot rumor way back when, but I thought it was happening. But
I was convinced.
I think they could jump into the top 6 just to kind of put a bow on this. Like I think the East is for the taking, and if they continue to develop under Darko, which they have every year, a top 6 finish to me next year is realistic.
Yeah, I guess to answer the question as well, not to just throw it on Kyle after he laid it out there. I'm on the same track as you, Cody. I would say making the playoffs in the next 2 years for me would be like where I would see the goal for the team within the next 2 years, make the playoffs, whether it's out of the play-in, whether it's outright. Again, this is a much more conservative take. I do agree with you. I'm optimistic that it could happen. If they were a top 16 next year, I wouldn't be like floored. I would be like impressed, but I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I didn't see that coming at all. But I still do think they need to grow a little bit and figure out their roles, especially how the fit with Brandon Ingram and Scotty will work. And like, again, Scotty's 23. The prime of his career is still like 4 or 5 years away. If we're talking about physically and understanding the game of basketball, like he still has some time, and hopefully he can kind of lead this team to success before that. But I still think it's a tall task to ask for a guy that young. So within the next 2 years, if they can make the playoffs, like I'll be like, Darko's doing his job, things are in the right direction, and I'm happy with it. And then you kind of evaluate from there how it's going.
Yeah, well, a team that didn't make the playoffs was the 905, and their season is now done. And I want to take you guys on a trip here, because let me take you back to February 2nd, 2025. Everything was looking up for the Mississauga squad. They were 11-4, atop the Eastern Conference, looking like they were going to cruise to the playoffs, and then it quite literally went about as worse as it possibly could. They only won 2 more games from that point, losing the last 17 of 19. They lost 17 of their last 19 games, a 10-game losing streak sprinkled in there, and now 14th in the Eastern Conference and 6th worst overall. It was a complete collapse. What did you guys think of this, the end of the 905 season? Do you want to do like a full review here? Do we just want to talk about the end? Because the end was pretty abysmal.
Yeah, it's a great question. And we have some stats up that we'll throw up on screen for our YouTube watchers of just the 905 if you didn't see it. Like Cody mentioned, finished the year 13-21. And just to reiterate, they were 11-4 at one point. So they went 2 months where they only won 2 games.
Yep.
Holy crap. Things just went catastrophically bad in terms of the win-loss record. They missed out on the playoffs for a 3rd consecutive season. You can look at the numbers statistically. They just, aside from being a good ball movement team, and they shot the 3 pretty well for the most part this year. They're just statistically they weren't great, especially defensively. But in terms of just like the 905 season as a whole, I think we've talked a lot about the fact that the turnover of the roster and the injuries played a big part of it. And I think we can obviously continue that conversation, but I don't want to harp on it too much because we understand the tough spot they were put in. I think everyone's expectations were that the Raptors rookies were going to stick with this team a lot more, especially guys like Jamal Ashed, Jonathan Mobo, even Jamison Battle, who was with the 905 quite a bit, but then he got converted. And obviously with the way the Raptors rotation worked, he moved up there quite a bit. Even like Frank Kaminsky done for the season, Ulrich Schaumburg done for the season. So like all that stuff.
Dylan
Like, just to
Dessou
say.
done, like Charlie Brown
Yeah.
missed some time.
So
there are two ways. AJ Lawson and Jared Roden were even with the team too. Like usually your two ways spent some time. Like I get Roden has spent a couple games now with the 905 again, but like the whole gutted.
Yeah. So all that to say, like there was expectations. The expectations weren't met because of things that happened out of their control. I understand that, but I think the point I want to make is, despite all of that, I was fairly positive on the season because I think this is such a high character group. Like I was there for the regular season home finale. They had one last game on the road after that, but their last game in Mississauga, like I was there talking to Coach Drew after talking to some of the players. They just couldn't help but speak about the culture that they built, the vision they had for with each other. How they like none of the players gave a crap about like getting certain minutes, what the tape said or whatever. They just knew they had an expectation, they had a system, and they were all bought in completely. It was all about like learning to play with each other and find their roles for this team and help the organization as best as they could. Evan Gilliard is a guy I look to who like his role changed immensely throughout that season. He was a backup point guard. He ended up being a starter for much of the second half of the year. And all he could talk about was just like the fact that everyone was so willing to sacrifice and play with each other. Like he kept reiterating high character. Jared Roden was just immensely grateful for the fans in Mississauga, saying they're the best fans in the league. He's just like, I love being here. He literally told us a story about how like I was talking to my girlfriend and I was telling her like, holy crap, like this is awesome. Like, I'm so grateful for this. Like he had a moment of self-reflection because that's how he sees this fan base and what the organization has done. So like overall, it was such a high character group of guys that circumstances didn't allow them to excel as much as they wanted, but they still stuck together. I think that gave me a belief in the team and the development system that the Raptors 905 have going on. And overall, they kind of did their jobs developmentally, if we're being honest. Like aside from the 905 guys, Jonathan Mobile, some of his best basketball this year, I don't think arguably even was with the 905. That was probably his best basketball as a pro so far. Jamal Shed had his time developing. His like uptick as a three-point shooter, I think, happened after his 905 stretch. We saw Jacoby Walter come down and do his thing. Jamison Battle spent most of his time with the 905. Like we said, then he got converted. Even if you look at, like you said, Cody, AJ Lawson, Jared Roden, balling out with the 905. They proved they're good in the NBA. Hell, Jared Roden might have been too good for the NBA. They send him back down to the G League. So, like, these guys were doing their thing with the 905 for the most part, especially the guys that you had some interest in. So, it sucks. They don't make the playoffs again, even though I think, Cody, you and I remember being at games together, being excited, almost giddy, talking about, like, we get to watch playoff hoops, hopefully, and it just never ended up panning out. But still, I think there was lots of positives to take from this.
Kyle, I'll let you jump in a minute here. I just wanted to add one more thing. With all the that culture, I think that's all credit to Drew. I think that's the biggest thing that Drew did, and all throughout the year, players spoke pretty highly about Drew and who he is as a person, and you talk to him and yourself, and you can gauge that pretty quickly. So, good hands moving forward. I think he was the right choice. I'd be surprised if he didn't come back as the head coach. I wouldn't see why he wouldn't. And like you said, they did their job, and the wins don't matter. I get that. I get it doesn't really matter that they lost 17 out of their last 19 games, but just something to note when, you want to see who the players are there and how well they do. And like you said, Gilliard went from a backup to a starter to the go-to option. So, and he embraced it, and all the players have did their thing for the most part.
No, definitely. I think you guys both took words out of my mouth because
covered pretty much everything.
Oh yeah, we both ranted a bit. I'm sorry we took it all, Kyle, but we've been sickos.
It's all good, boys. Like overall, like again, like you're the head coach with all these changes, all these injuries, all these players moving. The one thing you got to do is instill team culture overall and just make sure everyone buys into that. And he did just that. Like again, it sucks that they didn't make the playoffs, but I'm not going to flag them too much. Like Zophie, Cody, you guys already talked about, because the team was moving around so much, because they didn't have their players, they're not going to make the playoffs. They suffered a lot because of that. But the trade-off is that these guys got developmental. They developed their players. They developed them well. Jamison Battle, Jamal Shed, Jacoby Walter, Mobile, all these guys, and that's kind of what I want to see coming into the season. All of our rookies get good developing minutes like Grady got the season before, and they did just that. So overall, like, it just does suck we didn't make the playoffs, but I think there are some positives to take away from it overall.
Yeah, like I just like to your point, Cody. I just think Drew just he gives an absolute shit about these guys. Like, he cares about this program. He is just so into it. And like, point blank, I believe in Drew Jones as a leader for the 905. Like, I just think he's proven it this year through the ups and downs. He's been able to find success and positives for these guys and kind of build them as men and as players. And I am so positive on that. And I'm hoping he comes back as the 905's head coach. But like, super quick before I move on, I guess like we've talked about some of the guys, but I think this is a perfect time for us to maybe highlight some players. So I know we've already talked about Gilliard, but I'm putting you guys on the spot a little bit. But Cody, is there another player that you kind of wanted to highlight and just what you saw from them and where you were impressed by?
Yeah, I'll go with Quincy. Again, he is another one whose role has changed immensely. At the start of the year, he was in the rotation, playing a lot of minutes. Then a lot of the guys got sent down, and he was completely out of the rotation. Like, Drew was running like a 10, 11-man rotation, and Quincy and like was like one of the three people who weren't getting minutes alongside like a Tyree Key and a Tyler Perry, who Tyler Perry has also showed up at the end here. He was another guy I was going to potentially say, but I mean,
Game-winning free throw, Tyler Perry did.
He did, and he shot the ball pretty well towards the end of the year. So Guerrier and Perry, I think, to me, showed some things towards the end that they could potentially, get some more burn as G League starters next season, wherever that may be, in Toronto or elsewhere. But yeah, Guerrier to me, because he has an interesting blend of athleticism that, I mean, he dunks on people all the time. Like, he's catching bodies quite literally all year, and then he rebounds well, and he's overall solid defensively. So if he can just continue to iron out that offensive game, he could be a potential two-way candidate in a year or two if the offense can come along. So I'll go with Quincy, Montreal, Quebec native.
Hell yeah. Kyle, what do you have that?
I think I'm overall just like, Jared Roden, man, 40 points. Even though he was in the NBA, he came back down, just impressing me, balling out. I think 6 for 9 from 3 row, 2 for 2 for free throw. It's overall impressed with him. And I don't know if we're just talking about like the whole season here about players that impress me. I'm always going to be singing Jamison Battle's praises here, just going from how he changed from the 905 going to the big boys club, kind of finding his role, finding his stroke from the 3. Overall, I was super high on Jamison Battle. Still am. I think he can honestly have a spot on the starting team. And again, the 905 did their job with him, and we're seeing him kind of reap the benefits of that.
Yeah, Jamison Battle was awesome with the 905. He's doing great things with the Raptors too. I think he's just going to stick with the big club. Obviously, he's on a converted contract now. His shooting is just going to keep him up there. Other guys that I guess I quickly want to mention is Eugene Omarui, obviously another guy with local ties here to Canada. He's been awesome for the most part. He's such a unique player. Cody, you and me have talked about it a lot, how he's just like this small ball big who's just like, again, he gives me shades of Draymond at time, but obviously not to that level. But he's a very unique player who's done some really awesome things, at least box score wise for the 905. So Eugene Omarui is the guy I want to shout up. Another guy who's maybe a bit of a, I guess, more like unsung player for this team is Tyree Key. I think this dude is just such a professional basketball player. And if you weren't following the 905 from the start of the year, if you go all the way back to the tip-off tournament, first game of the year, Tyree Key hits a game-winning 3 at the buzzer, and the 905 season starts off with an absolute bang. And like Kyle mentioned about Cody mentioned about some of these other guys, like his role completely changed. Out of the rotation, the Raptors guys come in, other people are brought along. Like a guy like Quincy, he was kind of back and forth with the FIBA America Cup stuff, but then he's back in the rotation. So Tyree Key isn't seeing as much time. So like this is a guy whose role has changed a ton. But towards the end of the season, like Drew just trusted this guy so much because he goes out there, he busts his butt defensively. He'll make shots when he needs to. Sometimes even when the offense isn't there, he's just making winning plays on the other end. If you just watch some of those games in the second half of the season, like Drew is putting him out there in clutch situations towards the end of ball games because he just knows he's going to make smart plays for this team, even if he's not the flashiest player, even if his box score numbers aren't all that impressive. He's just a winning player. So Tyree Key, I just want to show him some love. I think he's just a great professional basketball player.
Yeah, his usage is pretty low, and he finds a way to put in buckets. And a good thing that you mentioned, he competes defensively. Like, he tries his butt off everywhere. So just sucks that he's only like 6'1", 6'2". If he was a little bit bigger, he could do some damage. We'll see. Came over from playing in Belgium, so he was one of the players I believe they asked to try out this season for them, and he ended up making the team and obviously hit a game winner and had played some good minutes for them. So yeah, other than that, like there's a couple other guys who maybe made their mark a little bit, but those are probably the main group of players who pure NBA Raptors fans might not know, because pretty much everyone we talked about is has played with the big club as well.
Yeah, look, I think that's a good way to end it, Cody. Like always, we bring you the best Raptors 905 coverage. Even if there wasn't a player we didn't mention today, we've probably mentioned them before. I can think of a guy like Kennedy Chandler. We sung his praises before this season. Because here at Raptors Republic, we bring you the best Raptors 905 coverage anywhere there is. Obviously, the season is over for them, but we'll still be bringing you information when we see it. But in the meantime, let's head back to the NBA Raptors and talk about next week's schedule. And the Raptors return to action on Tuesday. It's a busy 4-game slate, starting with the Bulls, and then a Thursday, Friday home back-to-back against the Blazers and the Pistons, who, by the way, the Pistons are the only above 500 team left on the Raptors schedule. And then lastly, the Brooklyn Nets once again on Sunday after whooping them a week ago. So, guys, I'll start with you, Kyle. What are you looking for this week from the Toronto Raptors?
Nothing too crazy. Like, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse when I just say I want to see the younger guys, get their minutes, get their development going. But I'm kind of excited to see the Pistons play. Like, Cade and them boys, again, like they're one of the only 500 teams left that these guys are going to play. So I want to see how the team kind of plays against them. A little bit back and forth. But overall, like, nothing too crazy. I just want to see, Jacoby Walter get his minutes out there. Jamal Shed. I know recently against the Philadelphia 76ers, Jamal Shed actually had a team high 9 assists. So just seeing those guys out there do their thing. But yeah, just again, main thing for me, just development and see how these guys can grow.
Yeah, I'll piggyback a little bit. I like the Jacoby Walter answer, because he was out for a decent amount of time there with his injury, and now he's back and he's making some starts. So continuing to see how, I believe there's 8 games left, if I'm not mistaken.
8 or 7, something like
Yeah.
that.
So let's see how he can finish strong. Same with Mobo. He's put together a really strong stretch here. Let's see how he can finish as well, because Shed has starting to steal the spotlight for how well the rookies are. Like, he's 3rd in assists among rookies and then 4th in assists off the bench overall. So he's probably been their best rookie, but I'm hoping that Walter and Mobo can have solid stretches to end the season here, because they're obviously long-term pieces moving forward.
Yeah, I really like that answer, Cody. Again, like Jonathan Mobo, like you said, since his return with the nasal fracture injury, I think the last 2 games he's really picked it up in terms of being able to be a productive player, or maybe the last 3 games. So that's awesome to see. Jacoby Walter, like you said, is kind of back and healthy. He's had such a stop and start season. So seeing Jacoby hopefully end the season with some kind of consistency will be important for him. But overall, I just kind of want to see that Pistons game, like you mentioned, Kyle. I want to see the Raptors play it close. That's probably their biggest competition. Arguably the only team they're playing against. Maybe the Blazers, you can count them. I don't know, that actually wants to win the game in terms of the Raptors' opponent. The Pistons are going to try to win that game because they're in a playoff hunt. So I think the Raptors could learn a lot from the Pistons, to be quite honest with you. The way they pivoted from last year to this year, obviously they went through a lot of really tough years that the Raptors haven't had to go through necessarily. But the Pistons last year, I think people forget, they won 14 games all of last season. They're at 42. I think they're the first team. I think I read this earlier. They're the first team in history to triple their win total from season to season. So obviously I'm not expecting the Raptors to do that next year, but the moves they made in the offseason, nobody would have expected it to do what it's done. A guy like Cade has been empowered because of the fit of these other guys. And mind you, Jaden Ivey got hurt and he's not playing, but the Pistons are still moving because they added things around the margins. They added veteran pieces. They drafted well, and they're able to move forward. A guy like Cade last year, all anybody could talk about was his inefficiency as especially a pull-up shooter. But now he's been able to reach an all-star pace because of the way they built this team around him. He's found his fit, and this team has really excelled from it. And I honestly think the Raptors could learn something from that, or kind of try to follow that model when it comes to Scottie and their kind of movement forward. So I hope that game is close. I hope it's entertaining. Raptors-Piston games generally in the past have been pretty fun. There's always a bit of just back and forth with these teams. They play some entertaining games. So I'm hoping it ends with just some good basketball, and you can kind of see some similarities between them.
Well, let's see how many ejections there are, because Detroit got into a little bit of a scuffle the other night. We will. Have those suspension lengths come out yet? I don't think so.
I didn't see anything yet. I haven't seen.
So honestly, it might be a weakened Pistons squad, because there was it was a pretty.
There's
rough.
7-8 players involved.
Yeah,
right? And
maybe Bickerstaff got ejected.
And it was pretty rough. So I wouldn't be surprised if 2-3 game suspensions come in, and maybe some players missed the Raptors. So I guess we'll keep an eye on that. But another decently fun week of basketball. Detroit's probably the biggest name. I always love when they play Portland. especially right now. They got a fun young team
Yeah.
with
Toronto's got a good defense, man.
Yeah, and they got a Canadian there that is a high flying that everybody likes to watch, Shaden Sharp. So hopefully, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Why not? Right? Why not?
Yeah, I'm glad you shouted out Portland. I'm a big Tumani Kamara fan, so hopefully we get to see a
He's
bit
great.
more of him too. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good spot to end it on, boys. I don't know about you, but other than that, I think that does it for us here at Run It Back. We want to thank everybody that did tune in. If you're still watching Raptors basketball, I personally want to thank you. We appreciate you. We hope you're still watching and giving us your feedback. Let us know what you're looking forward to from the Raptors this week, or let us know about the Darko Rajakovic conversation. Do you believe he is the coach to stick around, or will they have to eventually pivot to get to the winning ways? Let us know in the comments below. But until then, we'll be back next week to recap even more action. But please make sure to hit that like button on this video, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the Raptors Republic YouTube channel so you are not missing any news, analysis, opinions. We are your go-to spot for Raptors information. But besides that, for myself, Cody, and Kyle, have a great week. We will return later when we run it back. Peace.